Muy bien. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone who has joined us. As part of its 2021-2024 strategic initiatives, the International Association of University Presidents, together with CETIS University, has launched the second edition of the International Business Model Student Competition, inviting undergraduate students from IAUP member institutions to create business models that contribute to the 2030 United Nations Development Agenda. Today, we are honored to have Professor Analia Lourdes Pastran as our keynote speaker. Professor Pastran is a co-chair of Urban Campaign, UN Habitat, ICSB, and an expert in sustainable urban development. She will be sharing her insights on the importance of sustainable business models in achieving the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, highlighting how they can contribute to creating a better future for all. We hope that her speech will inspire all of us to take action and make a positive impact in our communities and beyond. Please note we will have a Q&A session at the end. Please join me in welcoming Professor Analia Lourdes Pastran.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that are joining us to this session. Thank you especially to Ulises for this invitation to the International Council for Small Business that I'm going to talk on behalf of this organization. And so I'm going to start sharing my presentation. And after this, I will be happy to answer all your questions that you may have. So as Gretel said, I'm the founder of CEO of Smartly, a social enterprise on the SDGs. I'm working as a co-chair of the World Bank campaign of UN Habitat. I'm also a member of the International Council for Small Business. So I have different hats. And in this special occasion, I'm going to talk and share with all of you different activities and programs that we are doing through these different organizations, mainly to achieve the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. So one of the requests for this presentation was how the academia, the university could implement the Sustainable Development Goals in their programs, in their actions, in their community. So I'm going to talk about that, but also I'm going to showcase some other programs and actions in terms of urban legislation, sustainable entrepreneurs, among others. So let's start. So the World Bank campaign of UN Habitat is one of the biggest programs of these United Nations agencies that we work mainly in localizing the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically SDG 11 in the cities, how we could improve the urban life. So we work with different organizations worldwide. We have different activities, the Urban Thinkers campuses, and we work mainly with different local governments, grassroots, civil society, schools of professionals, among other actors. So I'm going to give you more information through this presentation as well. The International Council for Small Business, we work mainly as one of the leaders in the establishment of the International MSME Day in the United Nations. This was a huge achievement, having a specific day for small businesses. And from there, we started to implement the Sustainable Development Goals in the business schools, in the entrepreneurship programs, accelerators, incubators, among others. I think there is a mic open. please, if you can check that. Thank you so much. If you can mute. So one of the things that I would like to start this presentation is we need, when we are implementing a program, implementing a public policy, if you are a government or if you are in university, like in this case, we need to understand and study how is the environment where we are embedded, what is happening worldwide. So right now we have 3 global crises. The triple C crisis, we used to say. There is the climate change crisis, the consequences of COVID-19, and the conflicts and global security risks that we are living that are escalating, especially with the Russia-Ukraine war. So one of the things that we need to realize that all the actions, no matter if you are located in one specific city, in one community, are being impacted through this crisis. And because of globalization, all the actions are pretty much connected. And we need to think in solutions that are also responding to this and answering this global crisis. So right now, as humanity, we are living in a world that is complex, that is more connected through the connectivity that we have through internet, Wi-Fi, etc., the mobiles, phones, etc., that are giving us the opportunity as well to realize that all the actions could be local, global, global, local. And that's something that we need to keep in mind when we are trying to solve a problem, a local problem that could impact to other aspects that we are not perhaps having in mind. So we need to be very careful in terms of that. Climate change is something that has been exposed as one of the crises that is escalating rapidly. And one of the meditions that I always love to share with all of the audiences, this made by the Global Footprint Network. This is showing us how the over-consumerism of the whole humanity is affecting the resources of Mother Earth. That means that our way of consumerism is impacting because the resources of the Mother Nature is not able to readapt or respond in terms of that urgency of demanding products. And one of the things that I'm showing in this screen is we realized that during the 70s, the 80s, also inclusive the 90s, the consumerism were related to the resources of the nature. So usually all the relation or the ratio was connected until, I don't know, November, December. The countries were consuming and the resources of the Mother Earth were producing at the same time in the same levels. Unfortunately, during the 2000s, we switched that ratio and we've been over-consumerism. That means that we are consuming the resources by the middle of the year, July, 29, August. That means that we are spending more that what we really need and the capacity of the earth. And in terms of the responsibility, the countries and the communities are impacting and are consuming in different levels. So the responsibility in terms of this it's different. So there are some countries that, like the US, China, that are leading this over-consumerism. And of course, there are other countries that are having other levels of responsibility and they have to give an answer. But we need to be also aware of that. I used to do and gives many conferences in Europe, in the US, and that's something that we need as global citizens to realize, that the responsibility is different, but we need to do something. And when we had the COVID-19 crisis, unfortunately, the governments and the response of the authorities were, okay, we need more masks, we need more hand alcohols, we need more bottles of alcohol, and etc. to sanitation, and to stop that COVID-19 crisis that was emerged unexpectedly in our lives. But this affected the climate change crisis, because right now, and there are different medicines and researchers that they have found that these masks, these protections were made with plastics, were made with single use of plastics. That means that we try to solve the COVID-19 sanitation crisis, but without taking in mind or taking into account that we already have the climate change crisis. So we accelerate the effect of that crisis as well. That's something that I'm always trying to put on the table, that when you are a decision maker, when you have a leadership position, you have to think beyond the specific problem. And unfortunately, the urgency of this unexpected crisis didn't give us the opportunity to think beyond and to give other solutions in the rhythm and in the times that this crisis evolved. So as you mentioned in the introduction, we have the Sustainable Development Goals. And what are the Sustainable Development Goals? The 2030 Agenda, adopted by the member states of the United Nations in 2015, it was a huge milestone for the whole humanity. As first time ever, we have in that year the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. That means that as human beings and the leaders of the different countries agreed what are the specific steps that we need and we would like as human beings to achieve to get a better quality of life, leaving no one behind. So these were two global and social contracts that make a huge change in this global agenda. And I always like to say that the Sustainable Development Goals are like hashtags for public policy, because these goals are giving us the opportunity to communicate and to do partnerships more in a faster way. For example, if you are a university that your work mainly is in gender equality, you have the opportunity to communicate through the SDG 5, all the actions, all the programs, all the activities through this specific SDG, and you're going to make a partnership with perhaps other stakeholders in other countries, in different level of institutions. That was something that it happens to me when I started my consulting firm Smartly. I remember that in 2016 we started to focus in partnerships worldwide and showing in our social media, in our website, all the actions and programs that were connected on the SDGs. Give us the opportunity, for example, to do a partnership with a company in Barcelona that they were doing business digital cards without wasting paper. And we did a fast agreement in terms of a couple of days. And that was because we connected through the Sustainable Development Goals. And when you think that in terms of globalization, all the actors that are worldwide, you have to be very specific in the message, in what are the mission and vision of your programs, actions, activities to connect faster. So the Sustainable Development Goals are giving us that opportunity, that guide of action to connect, no matter in which culture, language are you. If you see these goals, you realize that, okay, we are talking the same language. We are expecting to improve the urban life or the life of the people in the communities because we have the same roadmap. And that was something that I think that through the 2015 until now, we have as human beings. Of course, the Sustainable Development Goals had a precedent, the Millennial Development Goals, that they were produced by the staff, the experts of the United Nations. But the Sustainable Development Goals were a huge work from the member states through more than 18 months. So it was a co-work that tried to keep the experience and the achievements of the millennial goals, but also they tried to escalate. They added metrics, indicators, and also a more more wide approach in terms of not only focusing in some aspects of health and poverty, but also the social, environmental aspect as well, and economic growth. So this was more ambitious in terms of the goals that in 2015 were proposed. And this is something that also when people sometimes, and especially during these days that we are living all these crises combined, people they feel that perhaps these sustainable development goals are not possible to achieve. And I think that, of course, this agenda could be improved, are a huge step for all the stakeholders worldwide. And we need to make that improvement and to rethink how are we going to be able to achieve the goals by 2030, and if not, how are we going to be able to readapt these sustainable development goals. But these were a huge change in terms of this global roadmap. Of course, the impact of COVID-19, and I don't have for this presentation, unfortunately, some measures of the impact of the Ukrainian crisis, but this really affected the investment in the SDGs, because people and the communities, leaders in the private sector, they were trying to solve the urgency. We have, unfortunately, a huge, unprecedented crisis. So we didn't have perhaps the capacity to think that the impact of COVID-19 will really affect the other crises. So this really impacted the investment in infrastructure, in green energy, well, in sanitations in terms of access of clean water and provision of water. Of course, the COVID-19 affected mainly health and the investment in health infrastructure, because the private sector and also the governments, they have to solve the urgency in terms of access to vaccination, access to different elements that all the population needed at that time. And this affected, of course, the food and agriculture. And unfortunately, since this been solved, we observe right now a lot of droughts, a lot of heat waves that are connected with the climate change, also the COVID-19, that we couldn't do anything about it. And now it's affecting the security in terms of access to food to the next for the next years, upcoming years. So this is something that we need to when we are thinking in terms of programs and actions, these are the urgencies. And if we are linking also the crisis in Ukraine and with Russia, this really affected the access to energy, and then this has a huge impact in the communities, in transportation, in different aspects that are affecting as well the industries, the creation of jobs. So this is something that we need to as well to keep in mind. Of course, in terms of education, that was something that it really affected the investments. We didn't have the opportunity of prepare our educational system to this specific crisis. So people were trying to educate themselves through the cell phones, through WhatsApp, or in which method they have. So this is a medition by UNDESA, that it's another agency of the United Nations, that show us how COVID-19 pandemic, and I think we could add to this graphic also the how the war and the conflicts are affecting the logistics, the access to infrastructure, and also all the cities that are having these new conflicts, how this global migration is affecting also other communities. So we are living in a complex world. And so in this medition show us clearly how the loss of income, the loss of job creations, a lot of people lost their jobs during the pandemic, had a huge impact in the cities, in the communities. And this is something that we observe the consequences and the effects also right now, nowadays, in different cities. I've been in New York last year, and one of the things that I've observed, that huge city completely changed their dynamic, and a lot of people were leaving. They moved to another states because the taxes were less expensive than in New York. And so all that readaptation, we observe that right now there are a lot of stores and that they couldn't reopen. And this is something that are indicators of the consequences of this pandemic. And this is something that we need to analyze more to see how are we going to be able to prepare ourselves to another situation, similar situation, or to boost our communities, our citizens, in a different way, to readapt and to be more resilient, to be more prepared to this. So, of course, after this presentation, do we have any questions? Do you have any questions about this graphic? We could analyze specifically each SDG, but mainly I would like to show you that how this have impacted all the local and global actions, and how this really affects in terms of investment and in terms of the capacity of the communities to achieve the quality of life that they were used to or they were expecting to have. So COVID, and I think I would like to add here COVID / global conflicts / the climate change crisis are giving us the opportunity right now to rethink the way of how are we producing, how are we studying, how are we making the local rules in terms of urban legislation. So how are the communities right now where we are living, and what are the necessities and the opportunities that they have? So through the 2030 agenda and also the new urban agenda, that was another one that this agenda was adopted in 2016 in Ecuador, Quito, It's a global agenda that it was a result of more than 20 years of these different stakeholders worldwide. And these two agendas give us the opportunity to have concrete instruments to work for the city that we would like to live. So we need to think in terms of what is the dimension, the social dimension, the economic dimension, and the environmental dimension when you are trying to develop a program and action in your community. So we've been developing 10 principles for the city we need now. And these principles are connected with the new urban agenda and the 2030 agenda. And this is something that is very concrete, and of course, there are a lot of actions that you could do in your own, from your own university, in the different grassroots organizations that you are working. And this is something that we need to have as a roadmap. And so the first principle talk us about the health and well-being that we are expecting to have in our cities. And this is a concept very related to the 15-minute city. This concept developed by this UN Habitat and Carlos Moreno expert from Paris, where we are trying to, through the experience of the COVID-19 situation, and where we're trying to give advice of producing and consuming in your own community and consuming locally in the near stores. This was something that emerged from that pandemic period. So where we are trying to put on the table with this is that we need to ensure green spaces and spaces where the city are able to offer to their inhabitants to have a better quality of life. So this is related to having good health, because you have the access of more Mother Nature, and having also the possibility of being in touch and having all the activities, education, sanitation, close by. So you can, it's a city that is walkably, that you can do all the activities that you need for your routine without using your car, without producing more pollution. So this is a concept that it's going to be like cross-cutting also to the other principles as well. And of course, when we are thinking in the city we need now, we need to have peace and safety. And this is something that, with all the conflicts that we've been observing that are emerged, when I talk about peace and safety, I would like to always think and talk about what is happening in your family, what is happening in your school, in your university, in your working place. Is a friendly, peaceful environment, or there are huge levels of violence? Because the violence is escalating in different ways. And usually people think that peace is a situation without conflict, and they link that mainly with the war situation. But there are different levels of violence that unfortunately means that this is not a safety or peaceful community, city, urban space. So we need to think, how is your community in terms of these levels, and what are the actions and the activities that you are doing from your workplace, from the specific institutions that you are working, and that you can spread the voice in terms of this. And well, the other principle in terms of climate adaptation and resilience is a concept that people right now is more used to, because climate change, it was put it on the global agenda, and we have Greta Thunberg, different green activists that they are spreading the voice in terms of this and the need of doing something about it. But the main action that we need to think is if the local authorities in your municipality are they're developing and proposing specific tools in terms of climate adaptation, resilience in your own city, in terms of sustainable infrastructure, in terms of access to organic production, among other topics. So that's something, and also the readaptation of the urban infrastructure to be prepared in terms of natural catastrophe. So those are the aspects that we need to ask ourselves, in your community, this is something that is happening? And also, what is the role of your own university? If you're a student, a professor, an authority in the university, we need to think in the different branches in the different faculties of the university, how the specific field of professionals that we are trying to prepare is giving answers in terms of this. And I would like to give you one concrete example that I have the experience to see by myself in Loja, Ecuador, in South America. So in the University of Loja in Ecuador, the rector of the university, he requested to all the alumni and the graduates that to receive the diploma, they will need to plant a tree. So this was in the beginning, there was a turmoil, a lot of parents saying that why this rector was asking about that they wanted a diploma. And he said something that is, for me, a quote that I would like to share with you. He said, you are going to need more a tree than a diploma to live. And this is very concrete. It's a concrete local action that has a huge impact in the community. And right now, when I observe that veil with all those trees during all these years, is a program that this university is doing. I think that sometimes when you realize the power, the local power that you already have, no matter where you are, that could make a huge impact. And unexpected also, perhaps in the innovation of the actions as well. Other principles is inclusion and gender equality. And this is something that for women, economic empowerment, we have different studies and practices that show us clearly that when a woman is empowered economically, this really impacts the communities, their families, and the local economic growth. So one of the challenges that we have is that if in the programs and the actions that we are doing, we are focusing our attention in this diversity, inclusion, gender equality approach. And if we are putting the attention to give the opportunity to women to have this decision-making opportunities, not only to be one of the other ones, like the other ones, also having the opportunity for this. Because as we know, a lot of women, they don't have the opportunities of studying, they have the caregiving in their families, not only with the kids, also with their own parents. So this is a situation that we need. It's complex as well, and this is a principle, of course, cross-cutting to the other ones that I've been mentioned. The principle of economic opportunities for all, that is something that when you need that your city, your community growth, you need to create jobs, because jobs are affecting the quality of life and having the access to all the things that we need for living. So in terms of this, we need, and I'm going to go through this in the other slides, we need to rethink the ways of our industry, our pollution. So when you are doing we are investing in a company, you are launching your enterprise, you need to think what are the services and products, and how are they made, and what are the working conditions as well for the workers, and that's all the aspects that we need to think. And one of the examples that I'm putting here is sustainable tourism, because it's a huge industry that it was mainly affected, specifically affected through the pandemic, but also in the ways that the tourism industry were developed, using making a lot of pollution in the different communities. That's something that we need to rethink and yes, and propose other actions. I'm going to go back to this principle specifically in the other slides. So in terms of the principle of culture and identity, when we are thinking in a program, usually we have our glasses, our cultural and traditional glasses from our own community. So when you're trying to create a global program, you have to get in mind what is the inclusion approach that you are giving. And is this really taking into account the different aspects and the variety that we have in the different languages, cultures, and identities. In terms of local governance, that's a huge principle as well, because we need to give more participatory programs to the citizens, to be more involved with the local governments, and we need to request to the local governments to be aware of this global crisis. We observe in different countries that the politicians are more they don't realize about this global crisis in the levels and the urgency that we need to give solutions. And that's something that I'm trying also from these different programs to work with them and to give them advice. And I think the university, especially in Latin America, in our communities, we have a key role from the university, because when you have a democratically change of the authorities, perhaps a public policy that is implemented in terms of, for example, sustainable mobility, is going to be changed if the next government, they don't think that this is something urgent or is something important. So the academia, and especially the universities, this is the long-term memory for the community, because when you are working with the local public policy, with the local authorities, and there is a university that is leading also this action, no matter if this is changing democratically the politicians, there is some part of these institutions that are keeping that that memory and these practices. And this is something that we need to put in mind and put it more on the table. These partnerships with private public sector, and what is the role in terms of the academia, because private sector, if there is a company, an enterprise, also they perhaps do change to the different requests of the markets and the different demands of the market. But when you are an academic institution, you are thinking in long term always. So that's something that we need to robust the role of the universities in the action with the local governments. In terms of urban planning and design, we have also different faculties, different programs from universities that have to be in dialogue with the local authorities to give solutions in terms of sustainability in urban planning, sustainable materials for infrastructure. And this is also connected with the Principle 9, because we need more affordable housing for all, and also sustainable mobility. So all these aspects are things that we specifically could share good practices and best practices to your own community, to your with your own the local government that you are that you have in your city, and also work together. And in terms of learning and innovation, I think this principle is key. The crisis and the diagnosis that we were used to do from the university in terms of research, doing long time in expending a lot of time in the diagnosis step, show us that this with this crisis and how they emerge, especially the COVID-19 pandemic, that this is something that we need to change. At this time, we need to do the diagnosis, but at the same time, the implementation. Because if you do a diagnosis and then change completely, that like it happened in 2020 in Davos in January, they were expecting and saying a lot of in terms of the escalation of the businesses, but with the eruption of the COVID-19 pandemic in March, all the predictions that were made 3 months ago were unuseful. So as researchers in investigation, as professors as well, we need to give to the alumni, to the students, the tools to think that we need to diagnose, but at the same time, we need to implement, because the scenarios are changing so fast. And if you're not doing that, you are going to lose a lot of opportunities, and probably you are going to be out of the market soon. So that's something that we need to think about. Well, I'm going to share mainly in this presentation our work in the International Council for Small Business with sustainable entrepreneurship, a new way of doing businesses. We were trying to show, especially in different business schools in the USA, how the consumerism is changing. Millennials and centennials are consuming in a different way. We ask ourselves when we are buying a specific product, how this product was made, and what were the labor conditions, among others. So we are more responsible in terms of, okay, I'm going to buy this, but this brand, this company is really trying to solve this climate change crisis, for example. So this completely changed the way that we were used to, because usually the other generations, they were, especially during the 80s and the 90s, they were consuming a lot of plastic with a lot of plastic materials, and the result and the impact is what we are observing and having now. So right now, when you have a company and you are developing a product, you have to think that this market is changing. And if you are going to give a plastic solution, probably it's not going to be it's not going to get the attention of these new consumers. And this already happened to Victoria's Secret, one of the huge brand companies for female in the USA. They were losing sales the last years because they didn't have a sustainable approach to their company, and also the model of the women that they were showing was unrelated with this new mindset of these young women. So that's something that the market is changing, and we need to readapt. And of course, there are different companies in different levels, like The Guardian in the UK, that are trying to have, this is a news paper, but they are trying to not receive the support or the finance of companies that are oil producers, or so they're having this sustainable approach, and they're trying to give a kind of solution from their own market. And this is something that also we need to be careful because exists a lot of greenwashing and a lot of practices that are trying to showing us that they are being green, but they are not. So we need to, in this period, to see which one is really, really working and responding on this. The Sustainable Development Goals represent a huge opportunity in terms of fundings globally. And this was also started a couple of years ago, but in 2015 and like in this medition, but also it keeps the levels also during the pandemic. So here we have a huge opportunity when we are thinking in terms of entrepreneurs, companies that they need to escalate their project. And this other companies is one that is giving opportunities to any person who wants to invest their own money in projects that are impacting the Sustainable Development Goals. So those are different solutions. And of course, there are different practices in the region, in Latin America, showing that you can, well, this company, WOMS, is an Italian brand, but they're showing that you could produce a sneaker with plastic materials from the ocean. So they are trying to combine the solution also, well, trying to solve the environmental aspect, but also having profit. And that's something that we need to keep also, that sustainability is not also altruistic, it could be profitable. And a huge opportunity. We did a special issue with the journal, and also I'm going to move a little bit. What are the local actions that you could do with the government, for example, with the parliamentarians? We've been doing working in advising them how to implement the Sustainable Development Goals in the parliaments. Evangelina Colli, she's one of the experts in Latin America. She is the author of this ebook that is showing us how to create urban legislation. In this example, for example, protecting the bees, that is related to access to food. And so perhaps there is a faculty here in this session that could realize that also their action could have an impact with the local government, with their local communities as well. And in terms of urban legislation, we did an ordinance in terms of sustainable tourism, because when you have an industry, you have to give them the rules, and the rules are made by the local legislation. And so that's why I'm putting the attention that all the actions that we are doing from the private sector, no matter if we are from the academic sector, from a social enterprise, etc., we need to work closely with the local authorities, because they have the power of the creation of the legal market and the legal framework to prepare also the rules for this new paradigm. And lastly, I would like to share with all of you this picture by Dick Badujin, because I think that we need to be more connected with the Mother Nature and realize that all the actions, no matter where you are, has an impact in terms of the Mother Nature, in the city, in the community that you are working, that you are studying, that you are teaching. And so that's something that perhaps all this technology, also this new artificial intelligence that is nowadays in the news, sometimes change the attention or put our attention in different things but the main topic for me is to have this in mind, that all the actions that you are doing has an impact in terms of sustainability. So happy to hear if you have any questions. And I was trying to show you different aspects that, of course, in terms of public policies or legislation, and also in terms of businesses, how you can do an impact. And so happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pastran. Now I invite all the students participating in the 2023 IAUP student competition to ask any questions you may have. This is a great opportunity to streamline your ideas and receive valuable feedback from our expert ahead of the final presentation and video pitch reception on April 30, 2023. So I think there is a question. Well, they congratulate you for sharing your ideas and thoughts. And if any of the attendees feel more comfortable sharing your questions, writing them in the chat box, please go ahead. Or if you want to share those questions live, please let us know. Let's give them few more seconds. In the meantime, they decide to ask or to prompt questions, Professor. I would like to make a question. And the question has to do with culture. How do you notice a difference on how each cultures and I'm talking about each culture in each country? How is it more difficult for each country in each culture to apply each of these objectives you have talked about? Does it depends on if they are from a Latin American culture, if they are from a European culture? How do you perceive that this is more easy or more difficult to them to understand and apply these objectives?
Okay, one of the things that I've observed is that those communities that they have more ancestral knowledge, they have like a master degree in sustainability, because they usually have some practices that are more eco-friendly. And we observed that in Guatemala, for example, they were using palms to clean the palms of trees to clean the streets. And there are some other practices, for example, in South Africa with the local communities and trying to clean their beaches, the ocean, and that because they receive a lot of plastic from in those cities. And in India, for example, as well, in the World Bank campaign, we have different organizations from different countries and from different cultures. And sometimes we realize that in those countries that are poorest, or they have the middle income, they have more capacity to rethink and to say, okay, we need to be more responsible in buying this because we don't have resources to buy another one. But the thing that is happening with the richest countries, that since they have the capacity to buy more products, they don't ask themselves to of saying, okay, we need to be careful and not buying all this clothing because the clothing industry is the second most polluted in the world and is wasting tons of clean water. So I think that this diversity in terms of cultures, in terms of this ancestral knowledge, is something that from the youngest generations we need to try to embrace, try to get that knowledge, and again, and to learn from that knowledge again, because from there we have mainly all the solutions. And humanity have forgotten that all that knowledge, and they thought that all these industrial products were the solution because they were fast in terms of access, they were useful, but we observe that this is the opposite. So I think that this diversity in terms of cultures is giving us more opportunities. The thing is, if our institution, our university, our local government, our company is having the capacity of learning from there and from them and from all these different point of views. And I think that's the huge difference in terms of the leaderships that we need right now, this teamwork, but also being open of listening all this knowledge from the different people around the globe. And that's something that is challenging, is complex, but we have to. And I think that one of the messages that I would like to share with you is there exists an urgency that we, right now, it seems like the people, the authorities in worldwide are thinking in how to paint the house when you are having a huge fire in the attic. So right now we need to be aware of that urgency because we are running out of time.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And I have a question. They have sent a question to the chat, and that is, which objectives do you consider that have been met more closely, and which ones do you consider that have been kept behind? The objectives that are already met or more closely met.
Well, it's not an easy question to respond directly because all the SDGs are interconnected, and we are trying to put a specific goal and to communicate better, to have the indicators. But as I showed during the presentation, the SDGs were affected by the COVID-19 specifically, and also with this war in Ukraine and Russia. And so one of the things that I've observed is, at least as human beings, we are having right now the opportunity to talk these topics of how to get a better quality of life with these goals. And some of them, like gender equality, quality education, reducing inequalities, are being put on the table with more passion, with different activists, and also in terms of life under the sea. But unfortunately, if I think in terms of the end of hunger and end of poverty, if I'm thinking in terms of produce consumption and production, we are in terms of long behind in terms of the ideal and expected terms for this period of time. But I think that since this agenda was adopted in 2015, and this COVID-19 crisis and this global security crisis within Europe, we have two new crises that emerge, and that's why the results are not clear enough as we were expecting. But I think that also give us another message in terms of the urgency, as I said in the previous question, that we need to, in all the actions, in all the activities that we are doing, we need to keep this in mind. And we cannot be talking on other topics since we are not solving this and we are not putting this on the table. But yeah, I think that's mainly the urgency. And also, I think when I started this work with the Sustainable Development Goals by the end of 2015, in the beginning of 2016, and I used to talk about this, people were so disrespectful, because they said, oh, this is not happening, this is not going to, we are not going to need this. And what the things that I'm observing is people is realize that this is already happening. They observe the droughts, they observe the heat waves, they observe the different natural catastrophes that are happening, and we need to be prepared. So happy to see that people is opening and they are seeing this issue and they are trying to talk about. And I think that's something very interesting to see, to observe, and to realize that it's happening.
Excellent. Ulises has another question.
Yes, I have a question, but Analia Pastran, thank you for this conversation and presentation. So in terms of the commitment of the universities, how bring to the level of execution of the initiatives related to the SDGs from the university, and how measure does initiatives to the impact we have in the local, regional, and international part? Because we got a lot of initiatives come from the university, but maybe in some cases we don't have the specific impact through these actions. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. One of the mistakes that I observe in different institutions is when you don't have a global strategy on the SDGs that emerge from the rector, the deans of the faculties. Perhaps there is a faculty that is working a lot in terms of sustainability, the implementation of the SDGs. But on the other hand, you have another faculty that is writing a lot of paper, that is doing the opposite. Yeah? This is a silly example, but I would like to put it concretely. So this is something that it has to be worked from the high level to the top of the institution, and sometimes emerge in the beginning of the process from the bottom as one specific request from one specific professor, a group of students, and they're asking, okay, why my university is not doing anything about climate change or what? And this is escalating. But once this is escalating, there is the first authority of the university to take the lead of this and to put it in the strategy of the university. The Sustainable Development Goals have to impact also in all the faculties, the activities, and we have metrics to measure how this specific activity, like the one that we are having today, is impacting different students worldwide. What is happening with them later of this session? Are they doing some action related with this, since they observe that some of the ideas and testimonies here were impacting their, and they rethink their way of doing their activities. So we need to follow all the actions. And usually one of the things that I observe in terms of partnerships is perhaps you are doing a huge amount of work contacting some expert, some organization, they do an agreement, and that's it. And perhaps they are organizing another activity and they don't contact each other. So we are losing opportunities in terms of that. We need to think our partners all the time with them. In the different levels of our routine and daily work, we need to keep them in mind, because that's a way of escalating the actions. And I would like to share you also another example with this University of Ecuador. We started an Urban Thinkers Campus in Mexico in 2019. Then we did different ones in every year online. And in February, we did an activity with the parliamentarians, the national assemblies of the country, and we did a project of law of implementing the Sustainable Development Goals and the new urban agenda in the commissions of the national parliament. So sometimes we don't see what are the opportunities that we are having in your own city. If in your city there is a governor, there is a mayor, there are local parliamentarians, there are a lot of companies that they could that we could work with them into readapting their products and their services in terms of the sustainability, the SDGs. So I think that the students and the graduates, we need from the authority level to think them as the new leaders. Those are going to be the future leaders, the close leaders that we are having. Probably a lot of students and graduates are already working in these key institutions that we could connect and work and escalate the work and the academic work. And that's the role that I think in Latin America, the role of the universities, and sees that the political sphere is not giving the solutions that citizenship is needing and is requesting and asking. We need to think that we have an opportunity here. We have a role also in terms of this middle long-term approach of solutions. And I think that our communities is really in need for this. So happy to see how we could work together in terms of that, and connecting the work of the university with other universities that they already have a lot of background on this, and I think a lot in terms of the acceleration of the actions and the best practices, because I'm always aware in terms of the urgency of the solutions that we are needing. So there is no time for egos, there is no time for competing to each other. We need to collaborate, to complement, and I think we are living a time to do that more than ever.
Perfect. I have one more question here, and this is, do you know an international fund or program to support social entrepreneurs?
Yeah, there are plenty. I would like to give you my email through the chat, and I'm happy to contact you. There are different fundings in Europe, also from the USA, and I've been working as a mentor in Hatch Collab from Geneva, and we were investing in different sustainable projects worldwide. And now it's a Foundation Institute that is doing the same. So there are programs of investment there, also from Germany, so from the European Union. So yeah, there are a lot. So let me share my email through the chat, and happy to give you the links and the specific information.
Perfect.
I will share it here in the chat.
So any other question out there? Any other questions? I think I think they have all asked. Thanks for sharing your email address. I'm pretty sure they will be contacting you to ask the information. So if there are no more questions, I would like to thank you all for participating. This has been an important exercise, and on behalf of the IAUP Student Competition Organizing Committee and all the participants, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Professor Analia Lourdes Pastran for her insightful keynote speech. And just to tell you that your expertise and valuable insights have provided us with valuable guidance and inspiration, encouraging us to think critically and innovatively about how we can create sustainable business solutions. We truly appreciate your time and effort in sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. And we now conclude the 2022 IAUP International Business Model Student Competition Keynote. Please remember registration for the competition closes on April 17, 2023, and projects must be submitted before April 30th, 2023. For more information, please visit www.iaup.org/student competition. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
you, Gretel.
We get in special regard to Emmanuel Teroachi. He was the person who connect with Professor Pastran. So we appreciate that, and to our office president, Fernando León Garcia. Thank you very much.
I will let him know. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.